Welcome to Inside the Headset, presented by CoachComm. Each episode pulls back the curtain on the coaching profession, spotlighting voices from every level of the game and offering lessons and insights for your own path. But first, a word from CoachComm.
When the game's on the line, your play call can mean the difference between winning and losing. Don't let poor communication cost you the game. For 35 years, CoachComm has been the trusted leader in coaching communication, delivering solutions with unmatched sound quality, performance, and durability. That's why thousands of coaches in high schools across the country trust CoachComm. You put in the hours to prepare. Make sure your communication delivers when it counts. CoachComm, giving coaches the ultimate competitive edge. Visit CoachComm.com to learn more.
Follow Inside the Headset on your favorite podcast platform and subscribe to our YouTube channel for exclusive content. If you enjoyed this episode, please give it a like and leave a review. It really helps others discover the show. We drop new episodes each week, so hit that follow button and never miss a moment. Now, let's get inside the headset.
Coach, what's going on, man? How you doing?
Doing good, brother. Doing good, man. Good to see you, bro.
Well, good to see you as well, man. I know for a head ball coach, especially with a week 0 game, it's it's an hour. It's probably pretty hard to come by. So I appreciate you spending some time with us here, man.
Yeah, no doubt. It's getting going. I'm trying to get my calendar in my head all aligned. Everything's moved up a week, so the vacation got even shorter.
That's right, man. Well, let's go ahead and dive on into this thing, man. The first question we typically ask on the podcast is, when did you know you want to be a part of this great profession?
Yeah, I think every player probably at some point in time sits there and is like, wonder what it would be like to coach, or at least every player, because every player picks up that video game too. So especially nowadays, they pick up that video game, they all think they can call plays and
That's right.
run the show and everything, man. But so I kicked around the idea in my head as a player. And really, to be totally honest with you, Mario, it was kind of a life event that gave me the conviction of coaching. So my senior season, I was a player here at Incarnate Word from 13 to 15.
Yep.
In my senior season, so we're at McNeese State on the road, and my father's in town coming to travel to watch me play. And he ends up actually having a stroke and collapsing about a couple hours before the game at McNeese. He ended up getting airlifted out. It was a whole thing. A couple weeks later, had open heart surgery, and everything kind of went smooth. So I worked through the rest of the season, finished my final year of eligibility out. And at that time, going through that and seeing what my father had went through, I wanted to take a step away from the game. Actually, I kind of wanted to get away from football because of how consuming it is as a player and a coach and all that. Just the game just kind of takes control of you. So that life event, decided to kind of step away. I was a finance major in college, so I could do the numbers and all that stuff. So I went and took a desk job and kind of spent more time around the house trying to help my dad get back on his feet. And to be honest with you, so I get into the desk job. I'm helping out at the house with my pops and everything, and I'm like, man, like this desk job, this 9 to 5 isn't. I don't know if this is for me. 6 months after I graduate, man, my father actually unfortunately passed away. And that whole experience of that 6 months after I got away from football,
yeah,
I was helping out at the house. I was in the 9 to 5 setting, and again, I was just trying to figure myself out and spend more time at the house. And when he passed, man, I just had this strong conviction to kind of project the relationship that I was fortunate enough to have with my old man as a father and as that coach role.
Yeah,
because we had such a good relationship, man, as a biggest fan, biggest critic, kind of that coaching role. And football, being a football coach was kind of my avenue to allow young guys that don't get to experience that father figure in their life. This was my vehicle to do so. And then, so after that, I hit the road to Bowling Green, Ohio, and started my coaching career.
Man, well, RP to your dad, man. And that's awesome that his legacy can kind of be your spark to want, probably keep the main thing in this profession, where right now it can be so hard to do so with the win-loss column being ever important, more and more important every year. So, man, I appreciate the story. Now, obviously, getting in that car to go to Bowling Green, that's a different story, right? Because you realize you got a job, so you had to go in and quit, and then you had to go ahead and line this thing up. So how did you who did you reach out to? How did you ultimately get the plug in for that job?
Yeah, so I, and again, those 6 months of working that desk job, like I found myself staring at the clock quite a bit, just wondering, like, When am I going to get off? Is this really what I want to do? So I had been kind of kicking around the idea of getting into coaching and putting out some feelers and things like that. Obviously coaches from when I was a player, reached out to some high school coaches, kind of gauging their interest. I had some conversations with my father about it. And his first thing was, okay, are you going to make enough money to live and have a family and be happy and all those sorts of things? So he was actually a little bit like, make sure that's the lifestyle that you want.
Right.
And obviously when he passed, I was like, you know what? You ain't here to put any negativity in my head or anything like that, Pop. So I'm going to go get this.
Yeah.
But the connection actually to Bowling Green, Mike Jinks was the head football coach there at the time. And I had competed against Mike when I was a high school quarterback here in town at San Antonio MacArthur. So the year that Coach Jinks was at Steele and won a state championship here in San Antonio, he had knocked us out of the playoffs like in the 5th round, and just kind of mutual connections. My high school head coach, Van Fushak, I reached out to him and said, hey, if you know anybody that has GA opportunities or whatever the case may be, just kind of went back to that connection book that I had from being a player. And lo and behold, a couple months later, I ended up in Bowling Green, Ohio with a parka on. I didn't know anyone, man. It was a different world for sure.
Yeah. So that phone call to your head coach, was that ultimately kind of the plug that plugged it together? So that says a lot about your relationship with your head coach. I mean, because at this point in time, you hadn't been with him, at least as a player for 4 to 5 years now at this point in time. Yeah. And for him to pick the phone up and call, a head ball coach and say, hey, I got a guy for you, man, that says a lot. So, once you had that phone call, did you interview or anything like that to get the Bowling Green job, or did you just kind of hit the ground running?
Yeah. I mean, we had a phone call. I had a phone call with Coach Jinks. Me and Coach Jinks didn't really talk too much ball, just kind of because of our familiarity with one another.
Yeah.
And I think the relationship piece is what obviously got me in the door. I GA'd, so I've been an offensive guy my whole life, as a player, as a coach, yada, yada. And the GA job was on the defensive side. I was GAing for a guy named Perry Eliano, who was the defensive coordinator at the time, who Perry is a stud, and it taught me so much just getting to learn underneath him. But that was more of the, hey, let's have a conversation about football. What's your background? Yada, yada, yada. And just kind of giving me the understanding, like, hey, like the other pieces, like when you're coming in as a GA, like it's really not about what you know on the front end, to be totally honest. Like you have to be, you got to be able to talk. You got to be able to communicate and have an understanding about, football 101, but you're not there for your knowledge. You know what I'm saying? You're there for your hustle. You're there for your grind. You're there for the passion that you can bring in, and allowing, the vision of those full-time coaches and those coordinators to come to life, and just kind of having that, hey, I'm going to be a problem solver and I'm going to get jobs done. Hey, coach, what do you need? And just kind of that hustle to like, boom, I'm checking these things off the box,
Now, when I look at my notes here, it says you work with the DC, with the defensive backs, special teams, and it says receivers.
Yeah.
Is that accurate?
Yeah. So the last semester I was there was the spring of 18. And so we had made the switch. One of the, I'd been kicking around the idea because Coach Morris had got the UIW job in 2018. And at the time, obviously, I'm an alum. I'm a former slot receiver. Coach Morris was a big-time player at Texas Tech. I knew he was an air raid offense. I knew that was just kind of like a unique niche for me in my career, which I think the fit is so important. And I preach it in recruiting every time I talk to a recruit. Yeah. But I thought the fit was so tremendous. And I think that there was a little bit of awareness in terms of Coach Jinks and knowing, hey, maybe we can flip him over to offense and keep him in Bowling Green a little bit longer. So I did it for a few weeks and then had some conversations with Coach Morris, and it was kind of just too good of an opportunity. So it's true, but it was my offensive days were short-lived in Bowling Green.
I got you.
Yeah.
I got you. Now, as you talked about having that job for 6 months, and you're kind of looking at the clock, and your passion in there. You step into this profession, right? And I think as a player, we all looked at the coaching thing a little bit differently, a little bit more like you mentioned, like playing a video game. Okay, this is what we call on third down. Cool, let me throw my remote down and go hang out with my girlfriend. That's not the case when the game's not going right. You got to go watch film, break it down, especially when you're a GA, you're grinding your tail off. So did you have any of those experiences in that first exposure in 2017 to where you were kind of like, man, this is tough, or maybe I don't want to do this, or what was your GA experience like when it's midnight, when it's 5 a.m., and some of those tougher moments?
Yeah, to be honest with you, I've never had that. I mean, I've loved it since the first moment that I I got in the building. You know, I think the hardest part for me was obviously I kind of went through an early life crisis. And again, my relationship with my father was something that I hold really near and dear to my heart. So that was probably the hardest thing in terms of like, what am I doing? It was never like, what am I doing in terms of coaching ball and doing all this? It's just like, man, like I'm in the state of Ohio. I'm a Texas kid, born and raised. I've been there my whole life. I don't know anybody here on like that really, you know, personal level. And obviously, like I'm going through the things as a young man that I'm going through. And so those were probably the only moments where it's, you know, 4:45, 5 in the morning, and I'm sitting at my desk alone, and I'm like, man, Pops, what are we doing? Yeah. You know, those types of moments, but never in terms of like, what am I doing? Like I loved it. I love the hustle. I love the pressure of it. You know, like, hey, I gotta get this done. Coach wants it done this way. You know, and I've been thirsty for the coach me coach kind of mentality. And obviously I was green to the defensive side, like the terminology, the perspective. I mean, just from drawing the X's and O's up from a different perspective on the defensive side. I mean, it's just every day I was learning, you know, when I was around some really, really good coaches. So it was constant. I never had time to be like, man, I don't like this. You know, you're going to find that out pretty quick.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. Now I'm trying to think about the Mike Jinks kind of timeline. He was a Texas Tech prior to, and so I don't know if he carried over some of the air raid stuff. So on offensively, were they doing the air raid type of stuff? Okay.
Yeah, they were.
So obviously, if you kind of walked into a situation where you know the ball a little bit, it puts you in, you know, I don't want to say comfortable as a GA because you're not totally involved in the game plan and stuff anyways. But how important was it for you, I guess is my question, in your career in its totality to have that experience on the defensive side of the ball, getting out your comfort zone a little bit?
Huge, man. So huge. Invaluable, to be totally honest with you. I think, you know, I have a tremendous amount of respect for the defensive side of the ball in general, just because, like, I mean, just by its nature, I mean, you are reactionary. You know what I mean? Like the offense, like we know what we're about to do, and you have to react and execute and make plays and all those sorts of things. So I just think that experience, one, from how they prepared, you know, I mean, the preparation on the defensive side of the ball is unbelievable. You know, again, like offensive guys, we can get up here and we can say, hey, we're going to go tempo, we're going to slow it down. Hey, we're going to motion this, we'll shift here. You know what I mean? Like conceptually, like, and then obviously being a player, it kind of came second nature. But just being on that side of the ball and seeing the diligence that they worked with and the approach and okay, what if they do this? Or what if they do this? And just having answers to everything, you know, it's invaluable because I try to take that mentality to it. And the other piece is I thought I was very fortunate to work under a guy like Perry Eliano, to be totally honest with you, because I thought Perry was elite, especially in terms of running a room and being a position coach and just kind of teaching how to work, how to communicate with the players, how to hold them accountable, and just how to operate. So I thought it was awesome. I think that, you know, putting yourself in an uncomfortable situation really, you know, provokes growth, to be honest with you, especially early in your career.
Right. Now, you know, you kind of mentioned losing your father, right? You're in the middle of Ohio, don't really know anybody to this personal level. You know, what would you kind of, if you had to name that chapter of your life, that year at Bowling Green, before you had the opportunity to kind of come back to home and your alma mater and all that kind of stuff, like what was the grand takeaway from that experience for that, you know, 7-8 months?
You got to become a man. It's time.
Yeah.
You know, I for 23 years, man, I was blessed to have a really special role model in my life. You know, and I paid attention. I'm fortunate for that. Sometimes when I didn't want to pay attention, he made sure I was.
Yeah.
But that chapter of my life would probably be titled "Becoming a Man." You know, my own man.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, because you got to stand on your own 2 feet, and at the end of the day, like everybody's got things going on. Everybody's got things going on in life, Mario. You know that. Yep. I mean, me and you both probably got things going on in life right now that are challenging.
Absolutely.
But nobody cares. If we're being totally honest, like you got to show up every single day, and people are counting on you, and that's just what it is, you know. And I think that was also part of what I fell in love with is like I just knew guys were counting on me, whether my role was this big or this big, or maybe it was a guy in the defensive backs room. You know, a kid that I coached that I had a really good relationship with, a kid named Fred Garth from Mississippi, who was a good player for us. But me and Fred just kicked it off. You know, we had a good relationship. And players go through ups and downs, emotionally, obviously, whether they're playing good or they're not or anything like that. But just like the dynamic of like, man, maybe I can help Fred get to a different place or whatever that he's dependent on me to show up was something that was just, it fed my appetite. I had a real appetite for it.
Absolutely. So. Well, you kind of mentioned that that spring you got in contact and was having some dialogue there with Coach Morris, who was then at that time the new head coach at Incarnate Word. What was this dialogue like? How did you initially reach out to him, and did it lead to an interview for you to come down and take the job?
Yeah, when again at the time when Morris got the job, it kind of checked every box. And I mean, he was a guy like when he was in college, that's when Texas Tech was really scooting. That's when he scored a touchdown against Texas when they beat him, when Crabtree had that,
second
one of the all-time, one of those all-time greatest moments. Right. So when I was in college, like I knew who the elf was, right. So he checked that box,
right.
Boom, style of play, boom, I'm an alum, my hometown. So it's like, you just got this conviction, the same kind of conviction I had about coaching. It was like, man, like I got a niche there. Like I could fit, and at the time, obviously Incarnate Word's rise and trajectory and success has been, a rapid rise since. But at the time, there really wasn't a ton of connections in the coaching world from Incarnate Word. Yeah. People still didn't know. There wasn't much succession. I mean, we were a 500 football team when I was a player. And that experience, I knew like the opportunity that this place could have, being in San Antonio, having the right brand of football, all those things. I thought that it could, man, from an FCS standpoint, this thing could skyrocket. Yeah. And I knew that if I got here knowing the lay of the land, like I felt like I could be a problem solver. I could be the guy that gets things done. I could, in 4 to 5 years, I'm going to be the head football coach there. It's really what I told myself. If I'm being totally honest, and I'm not trying to sound arrogant from that standpoint, but I just, and I think as a competitor, you always kind of have to challenge yourself out. I knew that, it's maybe outlandish, maybe that's way in left field, but that's how I felt. Yeah. And I felt like I could get close to it if I just hustled. Maybe. So at the time, there was a ton of tech connections too, at BG, which I got fortunate. Like we talked about Coach Daggy, Stephen Hamby was there at the time. There was a number of guys that had Texas Tech connections that knew Eric. Obviously Coach Jinks knew Eric. So I had those guys reach out. I sent an email to the athletic director. Every possible connection I could have. I interned for a guy the summer before my senior season, who was a prominent business owner here in San Antonio, but I interned for him, part of my degree. Yeah. And he was on the board at Incarnate Word. And so I sent him an email. And then he sent an email to the president. So I'm hitting it from all different angles. So Coach Morris really didn't have a choice.
Right.
So we had a phone call. We talked a little bit of ball. And again, like, they want to know that you're confident enough and that you can talk the language, and that you can go from the position room and convey the message and convey the details of the game plan or what we're trying to execute on this play or whatever it may be. But as a GA, man, like the biggest thing that you have to know is like, it's my hustle. Yeah. It's my ability to utilize my 2 ears and my 2 eyes before my 1 mouth. Like, your voice is just, that's what it is, and obviously that time will come and you'll work to that point, but your hustle is going to get you those opportunities to where, you can have your vocal impact.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, when you walked in, I know at the FCS level, depending on the school, sometimes it's GA, sometimes it's QC, sometimes it's intern in regards to, what that job is. What did you walk in there as?
I was a QC. Yep. Okay. I was a QC with the receivers. So I did that for the 18 and the 19 season. I was a QC, which gave me some uniqueness because I would be able to meet with, the insider receivers. At the time, we just had one receivers coach, Jordan Davis, who's now the offensive coordinator at North Texas. Yeah. So I would kind of, the role gave me the ability to rally around the inside receiver room. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? So I got some unique experience from that perspective, which I'm thankful for. And then in 2020, Coach Morris made me, right before COVID hit it, thank God, he made me full-time. He made me the recruiting coordinator, and I just kind of went from there.
There you go. Now, during that time as a QC, especially at a FCS program, or some of the smaller programs where sometimes you do have to wear some different hats, or you don't have 2 GAs and 5 analysts and all this kind of stuff to break down the film. Like, what was that grind like in regards to just handling everything? I would assume maybe you had some help, but from an offensive standpoint, what was your workload?
From leaving the bed to getting to bed, to be honest with you, it was definitely a grind. Again, though, like I loved it, man. And I think as a young guy, like, are you a problem solver? Yeah. Just solve the problem, regardless of what it is. I can't tell you how many times I did things other than football to help a program. And now being in this seat, it's helped me so much. Absolutely. I mean, I'm talking from admissions to compliance to academics to housing, eligibility things. I mean, it just never stops. If you're to be totally honest with you, and that experience in terms of like, hey, Coach Morris, what do you need? Because again, at the time, I'm 25. Like, of course, I feel like I know ball and all these other things. Right. But there's a ton of football coaches that have more knowledge than me that are a better coach. And that's a hard thing for a young guy to realize. Like, my value as a problem solver outweighs my knowledge as a football coach right here. Now, if we get to a situation where I have specific insight and I have conviction about it and I feel strongly, I was comfortable enough to voice it in the right manner. Right. But that problem solve mentality and the experience that Coach Morris allowed me to solve problems for him, outside of just the X's and O's, because you can sit in a meeting and you can grow and you can learn depending on how disciplined you are with your, attention to detail and paying attention and all those things. But like, all of those things got me so prepared for this season. Right. So that those first 2 years, man, was just, what problem can I solve today? Yeah. And I'm on to the next, and I'm on to the next, and I'm on to the next. And another mindset was, as a young coach, how does every coach in the building feel about you? Mm. Would he put his name on you? Would he let you put his name on your resume as a reference? And would he say good things? And ask yourself that question. Yeah. And be honest about it, because at the end of the day, that's, this is a people's business and this is a connections business, and the more people that would put their name on you from a work ethic standpoint, because that's something that people can't argue, is your work ethic. Yeah. Your ability to solve problems. I mean, that's undeniable. People have different, tastes and flavors in terms of, their style of play or their system or what type of coach they are. But people, you can't deny work. You can't deny hustle. I mean, that's one universal language.
Well, what I think is interesting is, as you kind of look at your timeline, clearly you were doing these type of things to kind of get promoted and further promoted and further promoted within the deal. But it's like, your dad didn't coach, and I'm sure, whatever he did in his life he was great at it. But, your dad didn't coach. You're 24. Like, how did you have that foresight? Like, hey man, this is a big part of the business. Like, where did you learn that from?
My dad was a hustler. Just got I just when I was a kid, and obviously, like you said, like, he was in a different sphere, and there's so much within college football that is not football. Yeah. Oh yeah. When you see that perspective, that once you get into that head coaching role, and it's probably a shock to a lot of first time head coaches. Mm-hmm. I was fortunate to see that. But as a kid, I just, and this might sound cliche, man, but I just remember hearing so many comments about my dad's hustle. Yeah. Man, works his tail off. And I watched him. He was one of those guys, he's up before when it's not light outside. He's got the light right above the stove, and he's cooking breakfast so that he can give it to me, and then I can hit and go be at 6 a.m. workouts. Like just like the way he moved. And again, I continue to go back to the example that he gave me, and that hustle. Yeah. And like, shoot, man, when I was, I'll never forget, when I was in middle school, he would show up an hour early. I mean, to practice, obviously I'd get out of class, but he'd be walking around the field picking up cans. And what people thought is he was cleaning up the field to make it look better, but really he was cashing those cans in every week to give me $20 to go to the movies. So like that hustle in the margins, like that was something that I picked up on. Right. And really, man, I'm thankful for it. It's who I am.
Yeah. There you go, man. Well, clearly, like you said, you made a great impression. After QCing for 2 years, you're promoted to recruiting coordinator. And I believe you got a little bit more tied up with the inside receiver group. I don't know if you were the receivers coach.
Yeah, I was full-time.
You were full-time.
Yeah.
Okay. So,
he bumped me. So in 2020, he bumped me to full-time inside receivers coach. and gave me the recruiting coordinator title.
And so, at this point in time, you got your own room. Obviously, COVID's going to come and throw a wrench in plans a little bit. But as far as, that year, this is your first time you got a group. What changed that year as far as, your leadership and, some of the learning curves that you had to have when you were responsible for their play?
Yeah. Well, COVID was wild, obviously. So I get promoted to be a full-time coach. I've been waiting on this my whole life. And then we get like 2 spring practices. And I'm like, man, everybody got to go back to the crib. Like, it's over with. But just the responsibility.
Yeah. Again,
and we talked a little bit about, guys depending on you. Like, those guys depended on me.
Yeah.
And I don't think anything changed. Nothing really changed. Just like, man, now it's go time. Now I get to do the fun part of this thing, which obviously, used to do all the other off the field. I was a recruiting coordinator. I just, maybe now I don't have to give the campus tours. I can tell somebody else to give the campus tours. So that was a little bit of a switch.
Right.
But nothing really changed, to be honest with you. I tried to approach those first 2 years, and even my year and a half at BG is just like, man, like, how I want to walk in like I am a position coach, like I am the guy. Like, I want someone to look at me and be like, man, I want to follow that dude. Like, he's going somewhere. I don't know where he's going, but he's going. So again, I was fortunate. Coach Morris put me in some situations to where I had the opportunity to run meetings and was in a good place in terms of my exposure to what it tastes like to be a full-time coach.
Yeah.
And then I was fortunate again to be around guys that led rooms, and there's a ton of power in observing.
No doubt.
And being intentional about like pay attention, like watch. And you may not even you may not agree with it.
Yeah.
But there is some real power in observation, and just watching people,
right,
and listening. Again, like, the good Lord gave you 2 ears and 2 eyes and 1 mouth for a reason. And I took advantage of that in my first, few years of this profession.
Yeah.
And, I put my own style on it. Again, I'm not a robot. I'm not a copycat. I am who I am, right, wrong, or indifferent. But I do think that, those observation times in my early in my career did kind of mold who I am as a coach.
If I was on the opposite end of this podcast, I probably would have a similar answer to the observation piece. I'm a strong believer in that, and it's actually a big. As I got into full-time roles, it was a big pet peeve of mine when you would see the young guys who came in and they were just eager to share something. It's like, man, just be quiet and listen and watch and observe and grow and do it again and then do it again. And then you're going to sit in the seat one day, and then your voice, when it matters, man, it's going to be impactful. So in those 2 years there as the inside receivers coach and QC inside receivers coach, recruit coordinator, obviously the year was cut short. You guys finished, I think, the little bit that you did, finished 13th in the country. Then the following year, I believe you won a conference. Won a conference, advanced to the second round of the FCS playoffs. Had a wide receiver core that just went crazy. 4,600 yards, 50 touchdowns. What was it like to taste that type of success at a place that you had just played at not that long ago, and seeing them just flourish in something that you believe was, could happen?
Yeah, it was kind of surreal, to be honest with you, because I had a unique perspective in terms of being able to know what it's like to sit in that locker room and be in that weight room and working your tail off and just kind of putting those colors on and stuff. And I've always thought that this is kind of a sleeping giant.
Yeah.
And again, the full-time year in 2020 was unique. That fall of 2020, that's when Cam Ward got on campus. Mm-hmm. And we had about 15 practices in the fall. So it was like a spring in the fall.
Yeah.
And I think we had a game scheduled against Arkansas State late that ended up getting canceled because half the team got COVID. It was just a wild year.
Yeah.
But it also, it was a little bit of a blessing in terms of like, okay, how am I gonna critique myself? How am I gonna approach these things day to day? And we were still having meetings and stuff like that. So it was a little bit of a buffer to get myself prepared for 2021. And then we had a shortened spring season in the spring of 2021. We had a 6-game season, which is when Cam Ward came onto the scene. And then it's like, wow, like got something here. We went 3-3 in the season. Mm-hmm. so obviously not what we wanted. We started out 3-0 and then we ended up losing the last 3. So it was like, man, like there's something here. We're cooking with something. And it's starting to come to fruition. And then going into the fall, 21, we win the conference. We're starting to get cooking a little bit. And I'm trying to put my finger on when it just really changed. And it was probably that summer, man. I mean, we just, from that spring 2021 season, it was like, man, we have a brand. Like this is who we are. Yeah. We're going to go as fast as we can. We're going to get the ball in playmakers' hands. We're going to be brash in what we do. And this is who we are. And it just kind of took off from there. So it's been surreal to see that identity consistently bring in the talent that we brought in, and I think, again, I've talked about the fit a little bit, but we've been able to consistently recruit the fit really, really well here. The quarterback position, the receiver position, so it's been amazing to see.
Yeah. Now, and I'm trying to think of the year, 2010, 2011, I coached receivers at Texas A&M Commerce. At that point in time, Incarnate Word was a part of Lone Star Conference.
Lone Star, yeah.
Division II football. Crazy enough, I remember going to the game there and being like, God, this is a nice setup, but it was nobody in the stands. It was kind of a.
They probably still only have one side of the deal here. We played because when I was in high school, I went to MacArthur, probably like 15 minutes down the road, and we did a 7-on-7 tournament here. And I remember being here for the first time. I was like, wow, look at this place.
Yeah,
but I mean, it's wild, man. This is a hidden gem, that's for sure.
Yeah, and I was kind of thinking at the time, and they rolled out, and I'd never heard much about them, and they beat the heck out of us. Yeah. I was like, God dang, this is a different deal. And so now to kind of see all this, years and years and years of now all of a sudden it's a top tier FCS program. But just as an alum, what kind of pride do you have? Not just necessarily seeing it, but being a major part of this kind of turn of the tides for this program.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, I don't allow myself to really get into that. To be honest with you, I think that's a little bit of a trap, rat poison. Coach Saban would say.
That's fair.
It's always been like the next day.
Yeah.
Even in recent years, we've had the success that we've had. It's always been on to the next thing because there's just so much. This game is such a good teacher of life because there's so much that you can fix even in your victories.
Yeah.
But now there are a couple of days out of the year, like we had our alumni golf tournament last month. And obviously that's a fun day for me because, obviously I'm the head football coach, but I'm also an alum. So like I'm playing golf with my 3 roommates from college.
Yeah.
So that day I might be talking a little bit. We might be talking a little bit.
Yeah.
But I try not to. We're allergic to it.
Yeah. No, I can respect that. Yeah.
I'm a big. I'm still a 90s. I'm young, but I'm a 90s baby, so I'm a big Jordan guy. And like, I mean, I got the. You might be able to see. I got the.
I see him back there.
The mindset, everything, man. Like, I've watched The Last Dance. I can't tell you how many times.
Yeah.
And it's just from the competitor standpoint, and that ability just to create a groove and grab leverage in terms of like that chip on your shoulder.
Yeah.
And I've gravitated towards. And again, I keep going back to my dad, but my dad was a fiery Irish guy that like to compete.
Yeah.
So just that competitiveness doesn't allow us to do that at Incarnate Word.
I got you, man. And then, like I said, I totally respect that. But I will ask you this, and this is more on an individual standpoint, and it falls under the same category, so maybe you don't allow this. But I think the way the business works is, I think back to, I can't remember what year it was that Alabama won the national championship. And they interviewed Nick Saban. They just won, and he looks pissed. And he ends up saying something along the lines like, "Man, this put me a week back behind in recruiting." And you're like, "Dang, like you can't even stop and smell the roses." And I think that's something that is difficult in this profession. I think the really good teams don't do too much of that. But as an individual, sometimes when you get called into a head coach's office and there's a promotion on the other end of it, you get named associate head coach. And I think in 22, right? And wide receivers coach. Like, man, what was that win like for you? I'm sure short lived, but I mean, you just hopped on, you just hopped on a plane and went up to Bowling Green. Kind of, and it just is change of pace in your life. And a few years later, man, you're starting to sniff some of the fruits of your labor, I guess.
Yeah. It was kind of crazy, man. Again, like you go back to why I love this and why I chose this profession. It was relationships based. And my relationship with that I developed from 18 to 21 with Coach Morris and some of those guys on that staff, like it was real.
Mm-hmm.
It was really real. Like I'll never forget. We played in 2021. In the fall of 2021, man, we went to Sam Houston in the second round of the playoffs. And it's a back and forth game. I think the final score ended up being 42-41, and we're on the wrong side of it. Cam got tackled like at the 1 yard line, like straight out of Friday Night Lights, the movie.
Yeah.
And obviously it was a heck of a year. We won a conference championship, and it was deflating because the goal obviously is to win a championship. But I'll never forget. We're leaving, and the news broke because Eric had gone from Incarnate Word. He went to Washington State with Cam, and that news hit right after that. And so I'm driving back, and it's starting to hit Twitter, and it's like, whoa, like what's going on? And the next thing you know, I get a call from the athletic director, and it's like, hey, Coach Morris is going to go to Washington State. I need you to be the interim head coach. We got a team meeting as soon as we get back to San Antonio to address the team. Whoa, we just got knocked out of the second round. I just got done consoling my group in the inside receiver room, and you got the tears, and you're reflecting on the year, and you're in that moment where you're talking about, and you're like, hey, can you smell the roses a little bit? Well, that drive home was supposed to be that.
Yeah.
I was supposed to be like, man, what a year, man. Like, right. We're going to double back next year, and we're going to go win a national championship.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, it's like, boom, U-turn. So we get back. I'm back first. So I'm in this office waiting for Coach Morris. Like, what's up? Like, what's going on?
Yeah. And,
Coach Morris was the first male figure in my life to fill that void my dad left, to be totally honest with you. Not that it could ever be filled, but just like in that kind of like big brother, like, gonna be hard on me, but also gonna love me up.
Yeah.
And just push the buttons that needed to be pushed to put me at my best. So like, I'm forever indebted to him. I mean, that relationship meant a tremendous amount. So I'll never forget it, man. Like just him walking in, and it's an emotional conversation. And it's like, I'm like, what do you want me to do? Like, what am I supposed to do here? Like, do I still work here? Like, what are we doing? And, man, I remember watching him having an emotional conversation with the team, and then Coach Killough was going to be the interim head coach. And I'm standing up there like, I don't even know what I said, bro. Like I don't remember.
Yeah.
It was just like, hey, I'm here. And then I'm kind of, an integral part in the interview process, just from a coach's perspective. I think the administration here at the time realized that this place mattered to me, and they had seen the effort that I had put in to come back here. And to be totally honest with you, I told them at the time, like, if you need me to be the head coach, I'll be the head coach right now at 28. I guess I didn't like that number very much. But it was the right thing, because we ended up bringing in GJ Kinney, who is a rock star. Obviously, I love GJ. He's been another kind of a big brother to me in this profession. GJ gives me the entire receiver room, bumps me to assistant head coach. Kind of saw the value in me early.
Yeah.
So while I got the promotion and everything, it was more like my mentality was like, well, now I got to prove myself.
Yeah.
Because you kind of go back into that mode at BG where, hey, nobody knows who I am. So are these men that are here to feed their families and make an impact on these young men, are they going to put their name on me? Like they want to ride with me. They want me to be on the front lines with them. Do they trust me? And so I went back into that mode and just like, boom, boom, boom. What can I get done? I want GJ Kinney to know that he can count on me. And so I immediately went into that mode, because I also was like, man, I love this job, and I'm not going to lose what I've built. And I'm not, I'm going to make sure that he knows he can count on me.
I'm sure at some point in time you heard Dole saying, right, you don't want to be the interim coach that gets retained but doesn't get the head job, right?
Yeah.
I don't know how often people say that, but definitely something that is said. And now I know GJ, and he's awesome. He's a former 35-on-35 guy. Played for his dad at Baylor. Fantastic dude. But what did any of that negativity kind of sit outside your head a little bit? Yeah,
I mean, me and Eric were so tight.
Yeah.
And I think one of the hardest things as a new head coach, and obviously I know GJ worked with it, because again, like, you got to think, Eric was the guy that took it from we're just kind of treading water to boom, we're out of the water. Now we're going. Now we have Jerry Rice, Cam Ward's coming onto the scene. We have a brand, yada, yada, yada. And the hardest thing for a new coach is like, hey, I'm bringing my culture in. It's not, hey, we used to do this, or hey, we did this last year. Like, I'm super allergic to that.
Yeah.
So that was definitely, and I was again, I'm a relationships guy. I believe in loyalty. I'm authentic. I wear my emotions on my sleeve. Like, if I like it, I like it. If I don't, I don't. And I think obviously, I'm a competitor at my heart, and GJ was a competitor. And we had to get on the same page in that role. And I'm so grateful for that experience, because I came to realize how like-minded me and GJ were. And when we both were like looking at each other, like, that Spider-Man picture where you're like,
yeah.
So let's go get it.
Right.
And it just kind of took off from there, and the other piece that helped was I was retained as a receivers coach. Mac Leftwich was retained as the offensive coordinator, quarterbacks guy. Jordan Shoemaker was the offensive line coach that got retained. Pretty much offensively, we were all retained, except we brought in Cam Martin from UCF as a QC, who's now the running backs coach at Tulsa.
Yeah.
And Cam was a great fit. He was kind of GJ's guy that came in.
Yeah.
And then, Matt Gregg on defense. And so there were some holdovers to that core, like that core of what really helped kick us off, and that made it pretty smooth too, to be totally honest with you. I think GJ was brilliant in keeping some core guys around that would allow the relationships with players to be cultivated at a more rapid pace, because we were, 2022, man, that we were absolutely loaded from a talent standpoint, to be totally honest with you. We had some really good football players.
Yeah. He coached 2 receivers that were in the top 5 FCS for receiving touchdowns and yards, as well as winning back-to-back championships. Obviously you guys had a heck of a year. Now let's talk about just schematics real quick. Now, we don't really do too much of this, and I don't want to know your playbook or that kind of stuff as we head into the season. But obviously you spent a bunch of time in this air raid, and then I know Kenny comes in. I watched plenty of Texas State games the past couple of years, and I honestly have no idea what they really run on offense. But they're not true air raid, are they kind of in and out, some different stuff?
It's kind of a blend, to be totally honest with you. And so like my here's what's crazy, Mario. So when I was a player here at Incarnate Word, we were 11, 12, and 21 personnel based. I probably played 40 snaps a game, because that was every 11 piece set.
Yeah. And
then on, maybe they'll put me out there to run a post in a big set or whatever that may be. But we were a gap power, play action pass, boot football team. And when I got into coaching, I was thirsty for the air raid, because I always wished that's what I would have played in. It was kind of a privilege. Like, everybody runs the air raid now, and I'm looking at these dudes like, y'all have no idea.
Right.
I'm like, throw me the damn ball on third down. When I was in college, like, throw it. And I'm getting serious about it. But so I was thirsty for it. So obviously that was what, brought me back, was a piece of bringing me back and being with Eric. It's like, hey, that's who I want to be. That's who I am in my core. I just, as a player, was unfortunate to not get it. I had it in high school, and that's where I want to be. So I get back, and air raid is like my bedrock. That's who I am. And that's, 4 vertical passing game, the 90 series, Y cross, all those sorts of things. Yeah. And then when GJ came in, he brought the wide split, vertical choice, some of that old Art Browse passing game ideals. So the blend that we created in 2022, and obviously when you get into the wide split world, there's some quick game, and there's some things that you're limited to be able to do, quick game wise, run game wise, yada, 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 just because of how the field is spaced.
Yeah.
And again, I'm stuck in my way. So some of the perspectives, hey, this is a bender, not a seam.
Yeah.
Well, as an air raid guy, like, I see that as a seam. So like, I'm, again, like, the loyalty piece and being stuck in my ways and being a little bit hard-headed, I think that's probably a positive for some coaches. But it can also be difficult when you don't realize an opportunity to grow and become a better X's and O's guys, or a football coach in general, or even a person, to be honest with you. And when GJ came in, and that dynamic ability to create a vertical passing game and allow playmakers to be playmakers on the fly was something that, like, okay, let's diminish a little bit of this structured 90s passing game, and let's soup it up with this vertical choice. Like, what can we do within the framework of this wide split, vertical passing, vertical run game? So it became a beautiful blend. And obviously, Coach Leftwich has taken it to where he's taking it. Texas State, GJ's doing it there still. He's at Texas Tech now, and we're doing it here. So it's become this new era. I don't know the word for it.
Yeah.
You know, but it's a blend between the Mike Leach air raid and the Art Briles vertical choice.
Right.
And at some point they'll name it. Maybe they'll name it Kenny. I don't know.
Yeah, that's right. Okay. So you kind of answered my question I had for you there, because you rooted yourself so heavily into this air raid. And like I said, I watched them enough to know that they weren't just strictly air raid with whatever they were doing at Texas State. And just your ability to learn, 5 or 6 years in, where you know ball, right? You know how to get yardage, as I mentioned in some of the statistical categories, but now you got to sit back and kind of learn it again and get in your comfort zone, get out of your comfort zone a little bit, and maybe some opinions and things like that. And so I appreciate you sharing that from an X and O standpoint. And so I obviously you have the opportunity to kind of build a relationship with Coach Kenny. You mentioned maybe some of the, I don't want to say struggles, but just some of the roadblocks initially that it takes to kind of get to that point where you trust him, he trusts you, yada yada yada. So once you got kind of past that stage, what was it like to just continue on that success? Without Cam Ward, without the air raid. What was it like to kind of say, hey man, we really do have something special here. This isn't relying on one guy or one offense or one kid.
It was a blast. I mean, we had so much fun in 2022, and obviously, like, up until the season, it's all like, okay, can we be as successful as we've been in these past couple of years? Can we continue what Eric had done? And there was a bunch of different questions, and we had some transfers that leave. Obviously, Cam left. We had a couple of really good players that left us and went on because they didn't, kids will be kids, and so just kind of the uncertainty for the first 8 months, in terms of, Kenny putting his style on things and everything. But it was just, once the rubber met the road, and we had that first game, we played Southern Illinois, who was a highly ranked team and a great program. Coach Hill does a great job out there. He got us back last year, which hopefully at some point we can go back to Carbondale. But once we put the jersey on and the lights and we got to play that game, man, I mean, it was like, let's go to work. Yeah. And again, like once two competitors, like in terms of me and GJ, and it wasn't just us, it was everybody. I mean, we brought in Jonathan Packey, who's now the defense coordinator at Duke, was our defense coordinator. I mean, there was a bunch of new faces, and there's a bunch of competitors. Yeah. And that's something that's been pretty consistent in Incarnate Word since 2018 is like the men in this room are competitors. And I think that competitors take some time to get familiar with each other. If you put them all in a room, it's going to be like, let's every line's got to get up and see what's going on in the surroundings and everything. And once we were on the same page and like, hey, we're all like-minded here, and we had got a heck of a football team. And so let's go chase this thing. And it was just a blast, man. It was fun.
Yeah. Now, you talked a little bit about Coach Morris's departure and then the transition to, you've been an associate head coach and Coach Kenny coming in, taking over as a head coach. And then in December 22, you kind of, or I guess probably would have been November, December, kind of have to relive that whole situation again, right? Kenny takes the Texas State job and pick up the story from there. Kind of what goes down from your point of view.
Yeah. Oh man, I'm gonna take it back a little further. Okay. So I'll never forget. This is back in 2021, and me and Coach Morris are sitting on his backboard. So he put a couple of steaks on for me. I don't really know why he did this. Maybe he obviously, I guess he knew before he knew, but he looked at me and said, you're going to be the head football coach in Incarnate Word one day. Like, you're going to be the next head football coach at UIW. And I'm just like, what are we talking about here? I like to just keep talking, And then Coach Kenny comes in. We have a heck of a year. And then, again, like you fast forward, you get into November, and then Coach Kenny, it comes out that Coach Kenny is going to Texas State. We're in the midst of a playoff run, and there's a little uncertainty of what's going on, yada, yada, yada. And then obviously the administration kind of reached out to me and like, hey, would you have any interest? And I pretty much at the time, again, we were in a playoff run. We were trying to win a national championship because we had a football team to do it.
Yeah.
We lost to North Dakota State by a field goal and some. I'm not going to be the guy that talks about calls or officiating or anything like that. But we're on the cusp. Like we really got the chance to do something special here. And then you get the uncertainty about Coach Kinney going to Texas State, and then at the time, Coach Morris had just got announced as the head football coach at North Texas. And both had reached out to me about, hey, you got a spot here.
Yeah.
You want to come be, the assistant head coach and yada, yada, yada. And so, obviously those are great opportunities. I'm locked in on what we're trying to accomplish because of how special that roster and how special that year was. And so I was very direct and to the point when it came to possibly being the head football coach here. And I thought to myself, like, man, I told myself 4 or 5 years ago when I left BG to come back here, like, this is what I was going to manifest.
Yeah.
So this is my shot now.
Yeah.
Last year was kind of like, dang, could this really happen? To like, now it's either it's going to happen or it's not. So I had a great relationship. Richard Duran is one of the best athletic directors in the country, in my opinion, especially from a football side. We sat down and we had a conversation, and I'm pretty transparent. I think that's one thing that my players love about me is that I'm just going to tell them the truth because they know that I care enough to tell them the truth. And I just told him, I said, look, I got 2 great opportunities for guys that I love and respect. You're not going to find a better head football coach for University of Incarnate Word right now. I don't care where you go. So if you're going to give me a legitimate shot, I'm in, and I'm all game for competing. You can interview whoever you want. But I know I'm the best guy for this job, but I just need to know the realness of this. And, he said he had realness for me. I'm sure those 2 guys reached out to him and they had conversations and everything. And, the skepticism is I'm 29.
Yeah.
Obviously. But then I interviewed, and I interviewed, and the rest is what it is, I guess. I guess I interviewed well.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess so. You get named the head coach. But you stole my thunder for my question a little bit, because I was definitely going to remind you that, when you started that gig, you said, I'm going to be the head coach here in 5 years. So you came, you put the work in. I think it was 5 years exactly, right? Yeah. And so there's 2 ways to look at that. Super dope. Cool, right? You said you're going to be the head coach. Man, you made that thing happen. The flip side of it is you're 29, and you've had very limited experience in regards to different coaches. Some coaches get named head coach. They've been around 10 different guys, and they took some good stuff off each one of them, left some bad stuff off to some of the others. You're around good guys. How do you come and establish, especially the success that you've had under the 2 previous head coaches? Like, how do you come and put your own stamp on this program and its own culture? You really pointed out, like, when Coach Kinney came in, you were like, man, it was he brought his own culture in. And I think a lot of times when I hop on with some of these guys on the podcast, they talk about one of the first mistakes they made as a head coach was they weren't themselves. They tried to be the previous guy and all that kind of stuff. Well, how did you approach that?
I was, and you made mention to, there's some guys that have been around 10 different head coaches, and they all got a different style, and it kind of helped them figure out, okay, who do they want to be as a head football coach? And my sample size, while it was small early on, it was rich, and it was elite. Like, I mean, you can't get, from a young head coach's perspective,
right? Doesn't get better. Yeah.
I mean, those are the 2 that you want to, exemplify. I'm unapologetically myself, Mario. Like, I just am who I am. I'm a competitor. I wear my heart on my sleeve. I'm a relationships guy. I'm transparent. And as an assistant coach, I made a point because, and we talked a little bit about, like, do the coaches in the building, do they want to put their name on you? But this is a player's game, and I know how impactful a relationship from a player to coach. Again, that's why I got into this thing. So I spent the first, 4 years when I got back here to Incarnate Word into building relationships, not just in the receiver room.
Yeah.
Like, I wanted the defensive line to love me as much as these wideouts. A little bit of a manifestation. Like, you got to be able to capture the entire team, That's something that Coach Kinney did a masterful job. Obviously, Coach Morris did a great job of it as well. And they were themselves. They were both themselves. So I was just doing what I had seen. Again, I'm fortunate and I'm blessed, and it's not an testament to me. It's just I got lucky by being around two studs that were who they were, and that was kind of their advice, man. Just because when you get named the head coach and you're I feel ready in my heart. Like I knew I was ready to do it because I had experienced and seen firsthand so much success. But then you sit down and you're like, okay, what's next?
Yeah.
Where do I go from here? What do I need to be thinking about, or what questions do I need to be asking? And both those guys were pretty uniform in terms of like, dude, just be you. Like, like just be you. Fill out the staff, recruit. What do you got to get on your roster? Work through the installs, build out the count. You know what I mean? Like just step by step. So just I had great mentors, man. I was blessed.
Well, you kind of alluded to that with your last answer here, but I'm going to ask the question anyways. My brother's a head ball coach at Leander High School around Austin, and it was such a big deal for him to get that job, man. He had been trying to get a head job for a long time, and he called me. He was fired up, and then I talked to him maybe a year later, and he was like, man, the first time that door closed at that office, like day one when I went and closed that door, it was just such a different world. I realized that all the questions came through me, all the problems came to me, and I'm getting put in this very little of it is football. When you first started really kind of feeling some of that, where everything had to go, it was signed off by you to some capacity. What struggles, if any, did you have with the amount of stuff that was flowing through your desk, emails and phone?
It's crazy you say that first moment, man, because I remember it. And it was pretty emotional for me, to be totally honest with you, because at the time, like, it had been, since I lost my dad, it had been so much of like, go, 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 go. I got to hustle this. I got to manifest this, and I got to do this. And then you're sitting in the seat and you're like, damn.
Yeah.
And you wish you could sit there and like my old man was sitting across. We could take like, look at this dude, like, you know what I mean? That type of moment. So it was a little bit emotional from that standpoint. But once I got past that, and it was pretty quick because I knew how much work had to be done. We were at the peak. We finished as the number 3 team in the country and lost by a field goal to go to a national championship. We had the player of the year. I had 3 All-Americans at receiver, yada, yada, yada. And it's like, okay, I've gotten over the emotional side. Now I'm 29. I got 10 full-time coaches that aren't coming back. So that means that there's going to be players. We ended up losing 66 players. So now I got to reset a culture. I got boom, 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 boom. And then in terms of like the workload and everything like that, that kind of got me excited, to be totally honest with you. Like, it's my show now. Like we're going to go get it. And I think that problem solver, the getting things done mentality that I came in with, and that obviously Eric, took notice to, and everything like that, was just nothing changed.
Yeah.
Oh, compliance, boom. Academics, boom. Housing, boom. Admissions, boom. Financial aid, boom. You know what I mean? And I had built relationships outside of the building as well, because you just never know when you get that opportunity.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, sometimes the decision makers at these universities, they're not football coaches.
Right.
So as valuable as those relationships are, it's also the administration relationship that you have to put time into. They're people, and they work their tail off too. They just do it in a different way. So I think just building those relationships over time, and then just having an appetite to solve problems and being the guy that, hey, I wanted Eric to come to me and be like, hey, can you figure this out? Hey, can you get this done? So now people are just coming direct to the source. So I took out the middleman. Yeah. So there was really no difference in that.
Yeah, true enough. Now, rebuild was not really the word, I guess, right? Because you're in the midst of this success, right? You guys have been good, but rebuild is kind of a unique term in this situation because you lost 66 players, and you just mentioned that you had 10 coaching slots available. Talk about the coaching slots. You're a young guy. You're 29. You've been at the same spot at least from a full-time perspective for a long time. Where did you go tap into to fill up those coaching roles?
Yeah. Just people that I knew. When I got in here, so when we got back from North Dakota State, it was like one after another, man, of guys coming in like, hey, coach, like, I'm gonna end up transferring. I'm gonna go here. I love you. Yada yada yada. There were some guys that were kind of in and out, and so once we kind of got past that whole attrition, and it's like, okay, this is what I'm working with on paper, and these are the needs and everything like that. I knew what I wanted to do offensively. I knew the difficulties that we have against other competitors defensively. And I also, Coach Packy did a great job for us in 2022. So I had an idea of what I wanted to do defensively. But I was also open because I think that there's a million different ways to do it, So when it came to in hiring coaches was tremendously hard. If you want me to be totally honest, that was probably one of the hardest things that I did in my professional career. And that was one of those times where I was like, this is wild. Like, this is legitimate. Like, I can't sleep at night because I'm like, I like this guy, man. I like this guy a lot. Does he fit with me from a schematic standpoint? Well, he fit with me in 2 months when my juices are going and I'm competing and I'm in that mode. Like, there's just so many, and you're trying to project something a year out. You know what I mean? While there's so many different uncertainties and moving pieces, and we talked prior to the podcast, and man, no lights on, my light's in here. I'm on the board and it looks like hieroglyphics on my whiteboard, and it's just a bunch of different names, and I'm Googling and I'm calling and I'm doing my own research and I'm mining through all these names. And the other hard part is, man, is like the relationships can make things difficult because this is also a profession where, hey, coach, remember that time I helped you out with this? Well, coach, I know you got this job open.
Yeah.
So like sometimes it's hard. What is best for this program and my relationship with this guy are two totally different things.
Amen. Yeah.
And that's hard. That's hard, especially for a 29-year-old guy that fell in love with this game and is pursuing this profession because of their relationship.
Yeah. My
relationship with my father, my relationship with Coach Morris, so on and so forth. And so it's a conflict of interest. And it was hard, man. That hiring process was hard because I to be honest with you, I probably upset some guys. Not because I wanted to, not because I don't respect them, not because I don't have love for them, but just because, I just decided to go in a different direction and go with my gut and what I believed in. And so, I made a lot of phone calls to people that I trusted, that I respected. And, you have a couple of guys that are no-brainers, like, hey, if I get a job, like, this is the guy that I'm going to go to. But then, like from a coordinator perspective, I was fully open. I took my shot at a couple guys that were on the staff in 2022. We already been at Incarnate Word for 4 or 5 years, and they made the decision that was best for their family and so on and so forth, which is great for them. But I was out there looking for coordinators, and man, it was tough. It was really tough.
When communication counts, trust the headsets trusted by the best. From high schools to the biggest college programs, CoachComm keeps coaches connected and teams prepared to win. Learn more at CoachComm.com.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of Inside the Headset, presented by CoachComm. If you'd like to learn more about this week's episode, head over to afca.com. There, you can access every episode and find corresponding show notes. Remember, you can catch every episode of Inside the Headset presented by CoachComm on wherever you get your podcasts, including Spotify, Apple, and YouTube. While you're there, we'd love for you to take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast. Your feedback helps us improve and grow. Keep up with the latest news by following us on social media. Connect with us at Inside the Headset, and remember to tag us when you share your favorite episodes. For more updates on all things AFCA, be sure to follow the @WeAreAFCA social media accounts. If you're not a part of the AFCA community yet, visit AFCA.com to join thousands of NFL, college, and high school coaches nationwide and across the globe. Elevate your coaching game with an AFCA membership. You'll gain exclusive access to the annual AFCA convention, magazine, digital library, and AFCA Insider email. Stay up to date with the latest stories and news on the AFCA website. More than just a convention, the AFCA offers continuous education, guidance, networking, and more. Celebrate the past and shape the future with the AFCA. It's about fostering exceptional coaches who create outstanding teams and even better individuals. Invest in your skills and make a lasting impact today by engaging with the AFCA. Your journey starts here.